We have several staff members on the call tonight. We're grateful to have everybody here. We'll all introduce ourselves just as we are each going to take a little minute to talk. So as we go, rather than taking time right now, we'll introduce ourselves as we go. Why don't I just turn it to you, Raquel, and then I'll share some additional information.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Raquel Cornali. I'm the Grants and Data Coordinator here at the Division of Arts and Museums. I just wanted to kind of go over some quick Zoom things, just in case you are not familiar with Zoom. Like Laurel said, we are recording this, so if for any reason you don't want your video recorded, just turn your camera off for the session. You can do that by clicking on the little stop video icon on the bottom of your Zoom screen. And all the other things I'm going to refer to will also be in that little panel down there. The next thing is obviously muting and unmuting. It looks like most of you have either figured that out or are automatically muted. You will see that the mute in your little box with your face in it, there's a red microphone with a little slash through it, and that means that you are muted. So if you want to unmute, just click on the mute and unmute button at the bottom next to your stop video. Sorry for my dog if you can hear that in the background. There is also a reaction and a raise hand button, which you will see at the bottom. There's a little button that says reactions. And if you click on that, it opens up a bigger button. And there's a bunch of emojis. Thank you, Jason, which you can click on if for any reason you want to share an emoji. That's not required as part of the training today. But there is also a raise hand feature. If you need to raise your hand for any reason to ask a question, you can raise your hand. It will show up in the little corner of your screen there, and one of us will see that and will know that you have something to say. And then you can also lower your hand by clicking on the lower hand button. There is also closed captioning available. There should be a little button that says live transcript. And once you click on that, it will provide a closed captioning just for you on your screen if you need that for viewing this webinar. And then the last kind of thing is just a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to be going over the application pretty in depth for this session, but then at the end, we're going to do a Q&A session. So try to save most of your questions for that Q&A portion so that we can make sure we get to everything and answer everyone's questions in the right order. So with that, I'm going to bring it back to you, Laurel.
Great, thank you. It's so good to see some friends and familiar faces on this call. I'm going to share my screen so that we can take a look at a slide deck together. It'll just give us some talking points to work from. We're really happy to be able to offer this career advancement opportunity. You'll hear me slip up from time to time just because I am the grants manager, but this is a scholarship, and sometimes those words get muddled in my mouth. But this is a scholarship, but it works a lot like a grant. It's a request for funding, and it's a request for funding that is reviewed in a professional manner through a pretty regimented, transparent process. We well, let's see, a couple of things. We'll just start off with some of the basics of the application. The application is found at uamgrants.utah.gov. We call it our grant portal, and you need to have a sign-in access in order to sign into that. Some of you are associated with organizations, and if you are, if you're, let's say you work just for Ballet West, but you are a dancer and you're applying for your own personal dance career, and you haven't access through Ballet West, but you want to sign in through as yourself, just make sure that you are doing that. And if you're not seeing that when you sign in, give us a call. We may have to separate out. It just is a lot cleaner if that gets taken care of. Raquel and I will manage all of that. Raquel and I both manage all of the technical side of the grant, which is signing in, any hiccups that you get with submitting things, anything like that. And then our other peers on the call will introduce themselves, and they will share which subject area they are expert in. It takes, usually we get people signed up and into the system in a day if you are asking for that on a work day. But if it's the weekend, Raquel and I are not monitoring that over the weekend, but it's a manual process. Want to just give you a really important note. Do not use your phone or a tablet to apply for the application. We unfortunately have had a couple of situations where we've had artists try that, and the application goes into the biosphere somewhere. We don't know what happens. We've not been able to track it, other than that it's a situation that's a glitch caused by the system not working well with phones or tablets. The other thing is, this system works very best on Chrome or Firefox. It doesn't play quite as well with Safari or any of the other platforms. So Chrome and Firefox. Let's see, it's a hard application deadline of September 9th at 5 p.m. and the requests are between $500 and $1,500. I just want to go over quickly what you'll see when you first open this up. We've tried to be pretty broad and pretty open. We really do want to support individual artists throughout the state. This is for a career advancement opportunity. This isn't actually for producing or making a particular kind of work. That's not what we're reviewing. But we take really most disciplines. But there are a couple of things that we ask you to sign off on right as you get started. So when you open it up, you're going to have an attestation that says, I've read this and these are all valid. So the first is that you're applying as an individual artist, not on behalf of a band or a group or an organization. This is not something that is, it's really about you as an artist. And you getting better as an artist. It's not about you advancing your band, or it's not about you putting on some activity or doing something for an organization. Second, I'm a practicing artist and I'm able to demonstrate a sustained commitment to my work, career, and public audience. This is for artists for whom the creation of art form is part of your profession or part of your traditional skill set. That you belong to a tradition-bearing group and are carrying that forward. So either way, but this is really important to you. This is what you do. This is how you make money. This is for people who are 21 years or older. We have to be able to pay you is the next one. So you have to have a social security number, an EIN, an ITIN, some sort of way for us to create a vendor number within the state system and pay you. And you need to know that this is taxable income. So this is something that you will have to work with your tax advisor on to report if you do receive this. And then Utah needs to be your primary residence. This is not for Nevada or Idaho or anywhere else. So Jason, I will turn it to you.
Great. Thank you, Laurel. I'm Jason Boca, Community Programs and Performing Arts Manager for Utah Division of Arts and Museums. The next two slides are going to be about what we can fund and what we cannot fund. So some of this is going to be repeating information, but I still think it's important that we kind of drill some of it in. Starting with individual artists residing and practicing in Utah. Again, you can be a part of a band or a group, but you have to make sure that what you're submitting benefits you individually and not the full group. If you do run into questions about that, I'd strongly suggest you reach out to me or to Nancy in Visual Arts, Alyssa in Literary, Rachel in Folk Arts, and talk to us about it. I'd much prefer to talk to an artist on this end and make sure and help them get an application in correctly, rather than on the other side, the panelists say, this doesn't look like it's an individual artist grant. It can fund the creation and design of marketing materials. That can be photos, a website, videos, recordings for publicity. The third bullet, expenses associated with an exceptional learning experience, such as a residency or intensive study with a recognized master or mentor. But please note, this is not for degree-seeking programs. This can fund framing, freight, shipping, material costs for gallery or museum exhibitions. It can fund conference registration fees and travel. But this next bullet, it's really travel within the United States, including Utah. We cannot fund international travel. So here's the difference with that. If you're going to a conference in another country, this funding can help to pay for the registration of that conference, the registration costs, but it cannot get involved with flight or hotel or other expenses in another country. It can be used for vendor license fees for professional artistic opportunities, for studio or performance rentals, from purchasing of equipment. So that can be like musical instruments, sound equipment, canvas, studio lights, those kinds of things, as long as you can, again, show that it is about advancing yourself individually. Engagement of videographer, photographer, sound engineer. It can help with self-publishing and purchase of a credit card processing system. So it's kind of wide-ranging. It's how you tell us how this is going to benefit you individually. So let's go to the next slide and talk about some of the things we cannot fund. Again, cannot be for organizations or groups. It cannot be for artists who live outside of the state of Utah or who just are part-time in Utah for less than half of the year. It cannot fund any food, drink, or alcohol. It cannot fund any academic work or tuition fees for student work, as well as in-school curriculum projects. And then tied to that, it cannot help pay for any kind of going towards an artistic academic degree. It cannot do international travel, and it can't do fiscal sponsorship. So if that's confusing to you, the payment has to go directly to you. It can't go to an umbrella organization that then funnels the money down through to you. That's what fiscal sponsor is. And it cannot fund items purchased. This is a timing issue. So we will notify people that they've received the grant in around October. You cannot pay for anything before you're notified that you have been funded. And we'll get into that again in just a minute. So that's me.
That's me. Okay. Hi, my name is Rachel Haberman, and I am part of the Folk Arts team for the Division of Arts Museums. So these next couple of slides are going to be talking about the questions that will be on the application that you'll be filling out. So the first thing I would say is, just as you're filling out your application, I would encourage you all to kind of have the guidelines up as well, because within the guidelines, you'll find a section that's called What We Are Looking For. And it will kind of give you some hints about the things that we have seen lacking in the past that we would like to see in this round. So the first question we ask is that you briefly summarize what you are requesting in a couple of sentences. Follow the summary with a longer explanation of how this proposed activity or opportunity will advance your artistic career or help you achieve your artistic goals. So the point of this is to get like pretty specific idea of how this funding would help you, how it will help create opportunity for you, how it relates to your overall artistic goals. And what we've seen in the past is answers that are too short they tend not to adequately explain what you were requesting and what your hopes are. So it means the reviewer has to make a lot of assumptions. And when reviewers have to make assumptions, it's more challenging for us to make that funding decision. So within these boxes, you'll have between 500 and 2,000 characters, and we encourage you to use as many of them as you think you need. And then the next question we ask is, when will the project be completed? Or when will the product services be purchased? And again, that plays into the whole, the money needs to be expended in the certain time frame of the grant that it will allow. And that will be covered a little bit more later.
All right, I am back. So continuing some more questions. Clearly list and briefly explain all costs associated with your request. And please note this, the request should be either for a single item or for directly related expenses. We don't want you to combine a multiple unrelated request in order to request the maximum amount. So if you're doing like a recording, You might need to buy a piece of equipment. You might need to rent the space. You might need to hire an artist to play along with you, as long as you are the individual who's getting this application. So all of that fits within the same kind of expenses. What we don't want to see is money for a studio, money to go to a different conference, things that are completely disparate just so you can access the $1,500. That does not help your application. I think that's good. We do want you, in relationship to this, it's optional to upload bids. If you can, I think that makes your application a little bit better, because it shows that, you know, and you could show a couple of different bids and say, I'm going with this one. That's why this is the cost of the thing. I think it just shows that you've really searched this out. It's very professional. And I would encourage you to do that if it makes sense for your application.
Hi everyone, I'm Nancy Rivera. I oversee the visual arts program, and I'm going to go over the required documentation section. And the first thing you'll be asked to upload is a current artist statement. And for folk artists, you have the option of providing a letter of support. That letter of support can come from a mentor, a collaborator, an organization, or someone that can speak to your experience and art making experience specifically. For the artist statement, what we're looking for is a statement that's between 250 to 500 words. That statement should be written in the first person and describe your artistic practice, as well as tell us a little bit about your inspirations, your intent, what are you working on right now, what will you be working on in the future. We just want to know about you as an artist. The next thing you'll be asked to upload is an artist resume or CV. And that includes things like exhibitions, publications, awards, education, etc. What we really want to see is that you are an active artist, that you're currently creating and engaging in artistic opportunities and activities like art festivals, exhibitions, etc. The next thing that you will be asked to upload are 3 samples of your artistic work. And those samples should have been produced in the last 5 years. Again, that's so that we can see that you are currently an active artist. For performing and visual artists, you have the option of either including a PDF document with links to websites, or you can upload 3 digital files that are samples of your work. And for literary arts, you can include 3 samples, and that can be poems, essays, book chapters, short stories, etc.
Okay, so next we're going to talk about the application timeline. So we did already kind of talk about this in terms of the reimbursement and the fact that you can't spend the money kind of before you're actually awarded or notified that you've been awarded. So that first line there that says eligible scholarship start date, November 2022. Essentially that means that's kind of the start date for the funding period, let's say. So if you were awarded the funding, you would not be able to spend it or pay for anything before that. So let's say there was a guitar that you really needed to buy as part of your thing. And in October, you purchased it, and then you found out that you received the funding for that afterwards. We can't actually now award you for something that you've back paid. So that would be an issue. So really you have to make sure that you're not purchasing anything or doing anything until after November. And then the end of that period would be June 30th, which I'll get to at the end here. So really quickly, the application opened already. So that is there. It closes on September 9th at 5:00 p.m. That is a hard close, like we said, so please try to make sure that you get that done in time in the portal. There is a review panel that we talked about as well that goes over all of the applications. So your application will be reviewed along with all the other applications. That will happen in September. And then the funding notification will go out at the end of October. So you will receive either you will receive an email through our system. Normally it's a kind of an automated looking email, but it is an official award email that we send to you that says you have received funding in this amount. And so you will receive that at the end of October. And then, like I said, the funds need to be expended by June 30th. That is the end of our fiscal year. So that is kind of the end of your cycle for this funding. So make sure you're not purchasing something, you know, July 1st or trying to pay for something at that time. We really want to make sure that that is happening. And hopefully all of your receipts and other additional things reflect that as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the final report section, which will be due August 1st of 2023. So I think, Alyssa, that's you.
Okay. Hi, folks. My name is Alyssa Hickman Grove. For those of you who don't know me, I manage communications for the Division of Arts and Museums and also literary arts. And I think I saw Jared Kwan on the call. Happy to see you here, Jared, and there may be some other writers with us. So what if we award you funding? As an awardee, you'll need to ensure that you do the following. You need to keep copies of all your project-related receipts because we require those for the final report that Raquel just mentioned that we will ask you to do. We need to have you ensure that all your grant funds are spent before June 30th of 2023. And you will complete a final report form online on our grants portal, uamgrants.utah.gov, by August 1st of 2023.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. So these are our contact numbers. I really do encourage you to, when you apply, pull up the guidelines as well as the application. And the guidelines are found at they're found at artsandmuseums.utah.gov, which is our website. These are contact information. Again, if you're folk arts, contact Rachel, literary, Alyssa, performing, Jason, and visual, Nancy. And if you're having trouble getting into the portal or anything like that, please contact either Raquel or myself. And as I was listening to all of us share our information today, I was thinking about how much we want you to succeed. We really genuinely do. We actually were really sad. We had to turn a couple of people down in the last round because of that timing thing, which is why you saw it on 3 slides. It's just, we really, really do want you to succeed. We want to make sure that we get the information. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and this is time for question and answer. So if you could put something in the chat, or you can raise your hand, or you can just unmute yourself. We're a pretty small group. But do you have other questions that we didn't cover? Alexandria.
Okay. So I have a question on, because you somebody mentioned that you preferred artists that had a tradition, right? Or that they.
That's me. No, sorry. I'm glad you're asking the question. I'll try and articulate that better. We try and provide a couple of different ways to this. It might be that there's a tradition bearer that does this tradition, but maybe doesn't perceive themselves as a professional artist. So that's one path. The other path would be that you are a professional artist. So we're really, and Rachel, maybe you can say it differently and more articulately than I just did, but that's the essence of what I was trying to say. And I did kind of recognize that may have been confusing.
Oh, well, I'm just trying to figure out, like, if I've been practicing long enough to qualify for the type of artist that you're looking for. Because I got my degree in fine art in 2014. And then I came back. I'm originally from Utah. I came back to Utah, and then I made art for a little bit, then pulled away from it. And then I've been, we're continuously making art for about 4 years now. I haven't sold anything because I haven't sold anything. So, and then I do have like a show coming up, and I have things that I'm lining up, but I don't know if career at this point would be considered like what would be what you guys are looking for. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. Sort of feeling like, Nancy, this might be a good one for you to field.
Yeah, sure. I think so. And I think, you know, when we ask for a resume, what we really want to see is that, and it's not always necessary to have, for example, school experience, to have gone to school for art, but what we want to see is that you have engaged in some type of activity like an exhibition. And the reason that we feel that it's important that you show us, at least within the last 3 to 5 years, that you have created, that you have engaged in the art community, is because this grant or scholarship is supposed to really help advance your career, which in that sense, what it's implying is that there is a career that you are working actively to grow. And that's what we want to see, that you are currently creating, and this is a moment for you, an opportunity for you to continue that momentum and to grow your career. So if there are things that you can mention in that narrative where we ask, why do you want this scholarship? That would be a really great place to say, you know, this is what I have been working on, and this is why you may see a gap in experience in that resume or CV. And that really helps put it in perspective for the reviewer.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, see, there's a question in the chat, and then we'll go to Rocio. I think the next question in the chat should also be for you. The question is, I understand the grant does not support the creation of an artwork. Does it support testing and research of new materials in the visual arts during a residency opportunity?
I think that for many of these opportunities that someone's applying for, what's really important, and this is kind of a grant writing tip, I would say, is to understand that what we want to see is for you to tell us, how is this advancing your career? As long as you can show that that is what this opportunity is offering for you, then yes, basically, there's a lot of things that can be fundable. It's just the way that you approach that description of why this is advancing your career. And if that research and testing shows that you know, it's relevant to what your art practice is about, and it's going to take you to the next level of your career, you being able to have something to show for an exhibition or something like that, then yes, I think that could be something that's fundable. It's just really, it really comes down to how you describe this as an career advancing opportunity.
Thank you. Rocio, will you unmute yourself and share your question?
Yes. So I am thinking of applying for this scholarship grant for equipment. So if the equipment is, let's say, $2,000 or above the $1,500 on the application, would I just put on there that I'll put the rest of what is not what is left to pay for the equipment, I'll pay it myself, and the $1,500 will go towards that equipment? Is that, I don't know if my question makes sense, but yeah.
It does. Jason, do you want to take that and talk a little bit about, again, just talk a little bit about how that?
Sure. I think that's totally fine. And I think what you'd want to do is in that budget section, show the total cost of the piece of equipment that you're planning to purchase. And then we'll just know that the max that you can get from our grant from the scholarship is $1,500. And I think the way you just described doing that seems like it would be great. And what is your art form?
Photography. So I'd need photo and video. So I would be asking for a camera, which are around $2,000 to $2,500.
Right. Yeah.
A couple of cost notes. We do specify we are not funding wedding photography. That's one of the one that is listed on our list of things that we won't fund. I would recommend, if you have an art form that maybe is look on the list of things we don't fund, make sure you're paying attention to that. The other thing to be aware of is that we don't require the lowest bid. Let's say you get 2 or 3 bids for something and there is a difference in cost. We won't make you purchase the lowest bid, but we would I would recommend that you share why it is that you are wanting to select the one that you're wanting to select. Any other questions? These are great questions. We will put this training up online, and we are all very much available to you by email. Great. Jessna.
Hi. I was so one of the things that was mentioned as not being covered by this the scholarship is travel internationally, but if one were to do a music recording toward production, I'm an Indian classical dancer, and if I were to record music in India, primarily because of the much greater skill set that one can find in musicians there and in a small location, then would it cover that potentially?
I'm going to be honest, I think we need to brainstorm this. We ran into some questions around international travel. You and I are on speed email, so I will make a note to get back to you on that. This is a recommendation from our attorney, and that's a gray area. And this is a good example of how sometimes we have to work through something that we do the best we can to predict everything. And philosophically, as a staff, we recognize what you're saying, but it does fall in kind of a gray spot. So let us confer and we'll get back with you on that.
Sure, thank you.
Thanks for the question. Alexandria.
So I was interested at maybe becoming, like having a conversation on how I can get into grant writing for artists. I mean, I know there are these trainings, but is there another gateway where I can maybe be part of like a group, or like find a way to do it more like from like a professional standpoint? What would you say?
Any of my peers want to take this?
So Alexandria, are you, so you're an artist, a visual artist, is that right?
Yeah, I do glass casting. I actually have a sculpture inside the Cultural Celebration Center right now.
Nice, okay. And so, but you're also interested in helping other artists with their grant writing, applying for grants, is that correct?
Or just, yeah, other artists applying. Well, so I also work for Tracy O'Very Covey. She's a mural artist, and she's been asking me about looking for grants for her as well, and writing, helping her writing grants. Like currently, I write. I do a lot of her editing and a lot of the writing for her letters of interest for her public calls to artists. And so I figured, since I'm already kind of like working in that area, it would be nice if I could develop that skill set more and potentially have that as like more of an income for either other artists or potentially just like other organizations. I'm already kind of moving in that area, huh?
I'm going to jump in and invite you to schedule a time with me. I'll pull a couple of my peers in and let's have a conversation offline about this, because I think that gets outside of the box of this call.
Okay.
But I would love to have that conversation with you.
Okay.
We did have a question from Thomas about multiple bids that was answered in the chat, but just in case you didn't see it, the question was, are multiple bids required And the answer is no, they're not required, but it can help show again that you've done the research, that you haven't just chosen the most expensive or the least expensive, or that you've done your homework. I think across the board, showing that you have done your homework, that you know what you're asking for, you know how this is going to help you, and that you articulate all of those things, those are all really important. All right, if there are no other questions, I am so glad you were all here. I hope, let's see, Cesar, we've got one. Can I apply this funding to produce my show, to rent the theater, pay for the insurance, marketing, etc.? A one-man show, comedy and physical theater. Jason, take it away.
Absolutely, Cesar. I would say be careful about if you're doing this under a production company. You just would need to be really clear that this is about you applying to support yourself as an individual artist. So if you are the one who's producing the show, you want to pay for the theater to display yourself, that seems like a correct path. But if you have a production company that you're applying under, that could get a little bit murky.
And again, this would be, a great one for Cesar, for you to connect with Jason, maybe even share a draft of what your proposal is and see if it seems to make sense or resonate. And then Jason can give you some feedback. And you could do that in any of the disciplines with any of the subject matter experts.
Right. Excuse me. I have trouble because it was cut off for moments what Jason was talking and explaining to me. I don't know if it's a bad connection or I don't have,
Right.
I don't know.
So I was just saying, Cesar, and I'd be happy to talk to you as well offline. But if you are applying to produce a show as an individual artist, and you can show that as an individual, you're going to rent the space, you're going to pay for everything to produce this thing that showcases you and your art, I think that's a fine application. Are you there, Cesar?
I cut off all the time. I don't know.
Shoot, let's find another time to talk.
Maybe it's my connection. I don't know, but can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Yeah, it's like a Martian.
Yeah. We'll talk another time. So we connect a lot, so.
I listened to the whole conference very well, but now I have
Now you
trouble
can't hear.
to your voice is cut off.
Shoot, I've put up the contact information again for everyone. Make note of whomever it is that you need to.
Sorry.
Oh, and Alyssa, thank you for putting that in the chat.
Great minds.
Yes. All right. I think if there are no other questions, we are here for you. The scholarship, see, I did it. The scholarship's open for another couple of weeks, and we are happy to help you out. Have a lovely evening, and we hope to see you.
Another question did pop in from Ruben.
We have one more.
Go for it.
Hi, actually, my name is Junuen Carrillo. I'm a professionally singer. I go and promote culture. I do events for the community. I go and do assemblies for school, and a lot of stuff like that. So this is my full-time living job that I'm working on. So one of the things that after COVID and everything, I have seen the necessity of building better my equipment for the performances that I'm doing constantly. So would that be part of this type of program?
Yes, it would. if you are, as an artist, going out and taking all of your equipment to a school to do a performance, and there is
Yes.
a piece of equipment that you could purchase to make it easier on you, but it's still, and again, this is how you define this in the application. It's about you as an individual. This equipment will help you as an individual artist, but that feels like a very strong kind of application.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, because I'm really interested in promoting culture and everything, and the equipment is an essential part, like the sound equipment and everything, more like a performer, like a singer and stuff like that. So I think that will be give better exposure to my performances, you know, in the community and the schools where I try to promote the culture.
Yeah. So do you do this individually, or do you do this through a group?
Well, actually, it's me as a professional singer. Of course, sometimes I use musicians and stuff like that to back me up, depending
Mhm.
of the event and everything. But the main image is myself as a singer. So you'll find me on as Juno en Carrillo, Utah, or Juno en Carrillo. So yeah, and the main idea of what I do, I love to sing and do what I do, but also I think it's important to keep culture alive. So this is a really, so it's important, you know, to bring the opportunity to schools and also to the community to be exposed culture. I'm more concentrated in the Latino music, like the Mexican music, mariachi and stuff like that. So yeah, the main image is myself as Juno en Carrillo, and sometimes when it's in some of my performances, I bring the musicians, and other ones I bring dancers and stuff like that, so we can share with the whole community the beautiful, what beautiful is culture, and being able to share with everyone.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a great application union.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Okay, one last time. Thank you. We're here for you. Have a good night.